Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. For a number of years, we have recycled things that are profitable to recycle. Aluminum cans, cardboard, and scrap metal. What about things that need recycling, can be recycling, but it's not profitable? My guest today will talk about what he calls a balancing act between things that are profitable to recycle and things that are not. His name is Merle Paschedag. Merle, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Barry.
Tell us about your operation. It is called the Greater Paducah Sustainability Project.
Yes, Recycle Now. GPS, or Greater Paducah Sustainability, is a group that we put together to build on. Recycle Now is our first project. What our hopes is to help change the culture of Western Kentucky and be the model for recycling in the area. It's about adding the profitable recycling to the non-profitable recycling. We accept aluminum, cardboard, not very much scrap metal, just the household stuff. There are several businesses in the area that take large amounts of scrap metal, and we're not in competition with them. We're not in competition with anybody who pays for aluminum or cardboard. What we want is the stuff that goes to the landfill. So we take those profitable items and collect the revenue, and we pay to recycle things like glass, plastic, tin cans, the things that nobody pays for in small amounts. We have an outlet for it. We load it on semis, and the balancing act is making sure we have enough profitable items to pay the transportation fees and collection fees for the non-profitable items.
Mm-hmm. Now, some larger cities have been recycling glass for quite some time. I know in Europe there are receptacles for green glass, white glass, and brown glass. Is that sort of where you got the idea for this?
Well, I moved down here from Chicago, and we recycled pretty much everything up there. And moving to Paducah, Paducah is the larger populated area, McCracken County as well, in Western Kentucky. And we just thought that they would have a recycling program as well. Surprise. We tried that, it didn't work. We have a landfill. So several of us got together and decided we wanted to help Paducah get into the recycling age. And we started GPS. This is our third year, and we started in Kroger parking lot on the fourth Saturday of every month. We started out with about 200 cars after advertising, and our largest event was 850 cars driving through the Kroger parking lot on Park Avenue in one day. We filled 4 semi-trailers that day. We also take electronics, which is something that most people won't take. We are a partner with the state. The state contracted QRS, no, I'm sorry, Creative Recycling. And they handle the state's electronic recycling. So we are a drop-off for them, and we load up about 10,000 pounds, call them, they come pick it up. And so we are an outlet for electronic recycling in Western Kentucky.
Now, are we talking old computers, old electric typewriters?
Old computers. The old electric typewriters are a lot plastic and metal. But stereos, CD players, Walkmans, those little electronics that get thrown away all the time because they last 2 or 3 years and get replaced by the new items. We don't take kitchen appliances such as blenders. There's a lot of plastic. Toasters, now more plastic than anything. Microwaves are still hard to get rid of. We don't have an outlet for those. But basic electronics, stereo and video, is basically what we take along with computers.
Well, on that particular item, what in the world do they do with a truckload of old Walkmans and old stereos and old computers?
Well, the computers, they run through a triage, similar to the medical triage. They find out what's broken. If they can fix it, then they put them back together and load them with software, and I believe that they're contracted to sell them to school systems or other agencies
as rebuilds.
As rebuilds, yes. Mm-hmm. Monitors are looked at to see if they're operational. The rest of the scrap is broken down into all its elements: plastic, scrap metal, electronic components run through a process. The precious metals are skimmed off. That's where they get their profit. It takes a lot of e-scrap to recoup the cost, but the precious metals, keeping those heavy metals out of the landfills is a good thing.
Well, now precious metals, when I think of precious metals, I think of gold and silver. And
well, there's a lot of gold, silver, platinum inside all these small electronic components.
So
a lot, meaning that when you add it up, there's enough to be profitable.
To make it worthwhile.
And they process the plastic and the metal and as well and put it back into the resource stream, and manufacturers buy it and use it in their processing.
You know, recycling, of course, is a relatively new phenomenon, and I guess it's because this country is so big, and landfills, of course, out of sight, out of mind. Most people don't know where they are and don't really care where they are. But I think people are beginning to come to realize that there is only X amount of space on the earth for these things.
This is true. It's a matter of being good stewards of the earth. What are we doing? Part of the problem is packaging. We've gotten into this idea that bigger packaging means better sales. You buy the little thumb drive, let's say, and it's about the size of a big cigarette lighter, but it comes in a package the size of an oatmeal box. So what happens with that? You actually pay for that when you buy it, and then you have to pay for it to get rid of it. Kind of gets you coming and going almost.
So that's part of the psychology of selling is the package, well, I guess it is. The package is attractive and big and nice and fancy.
If you were buying something and you had a package that had all the pretty pictures on it and everything you wanted in a piece of equipment, and then you had a single piece of item sitting on the shelf, the attraction is to buy what appeals to you. Now, economic times, that there's a balance there too. Less disposable income means more frugal spending, but still the packaging we have no control over. In some cases, packaging is to keep shoplifting down. Since that is an expense for the businesses, they ask for bigger packaging. It's a complicated system, and working on it requires working on not just the recycling part, but the manufacturing part, the packaging part, the delivery system, and picking up the recyclables at the end.
Well, of course, you can see, obviously, the package will cost more to make and to ship and to recycle. That's obviously the case too. But again, going back to this idea, do you think, for example, if landfills are more widely publicized, how many people in Paducah, McCracken County probably even know where the landfill is?
Well, I don't know exactly where it is. I haven't seen it. I heard there was one here in Paducah, but it's been covered over. Now, I do know that in the area in Chicago where I lived, they had several landfills that were covered over, and one of them is a park, and they use it for a slide in the winter for kids to slide down. I was told that some of the highest land masses in Florida are landfills.
They are, and I can speak with authority on that. We went to Florida on vacation this summer, and of course Florida is just flat, and you pass these hills, and I'm thinking they have to be landfills, and they were. You could see the big trucks up there. Yeah, so it is altering the landscape of Florida, these things.
I did some research on landfills, and this one organization did mining in a landfill. And this was about 20 years ago, mining some of the first landfills. And the theory was that bacteria and water and moisture would break down just about everything in the landfill. Well, they found what has been known as the basic landfill components, newspapers, diapers, garbage.
Eggshells, coffee grounds.
Well, it was interesting. They found a T-bone steak still wrapped up, fully intact, that didn't decompose. And they found hot dogs wrapped up in a wrapper, They found newspaper that they could still read. This is after 20 years of supposedly being decomposed. And I guess the only theory is that with that much weight and that much being sealed, that it didn't have the oxygen to support decomposition. So now landfills have come a long way. More regulation, more requirements, and they're more expensive. That's why the larger cities have gone to recycling as a method of operation. It costs over $150 a ton to turn your trash in Chicago. It costs $35 a ton to send it to the landfill here. Economics is a big factor. But when you talk about being a steward of the earth, we talk about doing the right thing. And if we can put this material back into the stream, then we're helping the overall cause of critical thinking about how we use what we have.
Membership is optional in your organization. Explain how that works. Because some cities, laws require recycling in some areas. I know in certain European cities there are, and I guess that's true here in the States.
There was several teachers from the area went to Austria, and the residents there were allowed to recycle anything for free, but their garbage they were charged for, and if they had more than the state allowed or the municipal allowance, they were fined. It's a different culture. They watch all the packaging that comes into their country. They don't let anything in.
Is that partly because, well, Austria, for example, is much smaller than the United States? We've always had this attitude that, well, okay, we can pile a bunch of garbage over here and it won't be seen. You think that's part of it, that it's so much smaller geographically, there are more people there, and there's a greater awareness that we can't just stack this stuff over here?
I think there's several things at play there, and culture is probably the biggest. No one wants to think about their trash. They expect someone to take it away for them. We are a large country, and in that, our fast-paced lives, our culture tends to not look at the things that we don't want to deal with. So I think the recycling movement is one of those movements that say we need to look at how we live. I deem it as quality of living. We have quality of life issues, but how many people look at the quality of living? How well they're living in comparison to the right things to do. So I think that it's been, what, 30 years since recycling started?
Probably.
We're still, in some cases, taking baby steps.
But and I think something else, it's difficult to sell someone on the idea, if you don't do this now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, you'll have to do it. That's a tough sell.
Well, I know that at some point I'm going to die, and I buy life insurance to protect my children and grandchildren in some way. I look at this as an insurance policy that I'm also protecting them from the possibility that in the future some resources will be gone. It's a personal choice. I don't condemn anybody for not recycling, but I do believe it's a municipal responsibility at some point. Now, you asked me a question about membership is optional. Our group is founded on the concept of we wanted to provide a service. So we are under a nonprofit organization called Jackson Purchase Resource Conservation and Development, JPF. In that, we wanted to give people an option to support. Petitions anymore are just pieces of paper that people look at and ignore. I can stand at the mall and get 1,000 signatures just because they want to get past me. But when someone joins, and our membership is $20 a year for the family, it makes a statement. It says that we are interested enough to put some money towards this, and we're doing it from our choice. It makes a stronger statement and shows interest in recycling. Our membership is designed to build a group of people who want to see change in the local area. So that's why we said membership is optional.
So when you join the organization, your $20 are paid, then what happens?
You're just a member. We don't give anything for being a member. It's just the satisfaction of supporting a process that is good for the area.
So how does the individual member support the process?
Well, of course they're recycling if they believe that. But that $20 is a big support. Plus, if they're willing to sign up and be a member, then they're willing to talk about it to their friends. And say, you know, you ought to be a member of GPS. They're doing good things. And we hear that a lot.
So you bring your recyclables to a certain area and drop them off. How does that work, physically work?
Well, we're located at 1830 North 8th Street. It's a double Quonset hut. We're right next to Paducah Water Filtration Plant. And you drive along the fence between the building and the Paducah Water fence, drive in the back, and pull into the building, and we unload you. You do not have to be a member to drop off. We accept anybody who brings recycling. Since we are a nonprofit, we ask for a $1 donation per vehicle. And that helps sustain us with the membership and with the revenue we get from the recyclables after we pay the transportation and the fees for the non-profitable items.
All of your part-time staffers, you have full-time, how does that work?
Well, we do use Class D labor from the local jail. And they are hardworking individuals trying to serve their time. And we have volunteers. Right now we have one paid person to manage the place, and we're looking to expand. There's a couple grants, and we'll have some part-time help through that. One of our goals was to hire and provide a couple extra jobs in the area, which we hope we can continue.
Your brochure says you're a partnership with government as well. How does the partnership with government work?
Well, both the city and the county have signed off on asking for grants to help the recycling effort. And we received 2 grants, one from the state and one from the federal stimulus package. Now those grants add up to over $300,000, just over. I think it's like 305. With that, we're able to buy equipment such as balers, forklift, skid steer, trailers, to help improve our process handling. The DOE grant, the stimulus grant, will allow us to hire another assistant manager. So we can improve our service to the community. We're looking to get trailers and partner with the school districts so that each school could have the ability to recycle. Now these are long-term plans. Could happen next year, could happen in 2 years. But we have, I would say, 75% of the schools have at least one class that has done a project in recycling. I don't want to short any, we could have 100%, but it's not an organized process yet, and that's what we hope to become, is a partner with the school systems.
It kind of puts me in mind of in World War II when the kids would collect tires and scrap metal for the war effort, pans and things like that. With get the kids involved, you get the parents involved.
Now, on a point, you may have seen during Barbecue on the River that there were several young students out picking up litter. Well, one of the things that we do is we worked with the barbecue staff, and they donated $1,000 for litter control, basically, so that when you're walking down and standing in front of the booze, you're not standing in ankle-deep spilt ribbon fries or turkey leg bones and stuff like that, where it's hard to pick up. Our volunteers, we had about 30 this year, who belong to different youth groups or school organizations, such as recycle clubs or environmental clubs. And we take that $100,000, and we divide it between the groups who participated to seed their organization and give them incentive for expanding their school organizations.
Mm-hmm. What is your background and how did you get into this?
Well, my background is I'm a retired Navy. And how I started recycling was I remarried, and my wife's daughters pretty much trained me to recycle. Whenever I first entered the family, I was throwing things away, and it would be little hints like, why can't you just throw that in the recycle bin, which is just over there, instead of throwing it in the trash? And she was right. So moving down here, we had cardboard, paper, we had plastic, glass from we were collecting while we were moving in, and I went to find the local recycle place. And I found nothing but lack of information. In that, I decided that I was going to do something myself, so we started doing the things that was available here: paper, cardboard, and aluminum. And my neighbors started joining in, and pretty soon I started asking people if they wanted to get together and try to do something bigger. And that's how GPS came about.
That's real grassroots stuff.
Yes, it is. Had someone told me that I was going to retire from the Navy, move to Paducah, Kentucky, and start a recycle program, I think I would have ran the other way, not knowing what it was. But it's very rewarding to be able to give back to a community that I've joined. Mm-hmm. And throughout my naval career, I moved around too much to really be part of any community. So my wife and I have chosen Paducah as our community, and we try to do the best we can.
You know, we were talking a moment ago about packaging. There's a commercial, there's a plastic item, and it said something is, in a few minutes, this plastic item lasts forever, like a plastic milk jug. You've seen those things. They'll be around for 1,000 years. People, I don't think, realize that this plastic milk jug they toss out will be there. You talked about the T-bone steak in the newspaper. The plastic milk jug will certainly be there.
Yes. One of the things that breaks down plastic is sunlight. And there's this pool of plastic in the South Pacific, I believe, that's just swirling. And the sun breaks down the plastic, and it gets caught up in, the fish eat it, and there's a lot of data on how that plastic is entering the food chain. But locally, plastic just fills up the ground. It's by bulk, uncompressed, probably the largest amount of recycling.
Oh yeah.
Weight-wise, it's one of the least.
It is, sure.
But it takes up a lot of space unless it's compressed. So plastic is good. There's a lot of medical applications that our knowledge of plastic makes breakthroughs every day. However, responsible use of plastic is important. Styrofoam is one of those products that just will not be useful. There is no recycling of styrofoam. Some people use it for different things, but the recycle companies don't want it because it's too light, too cost prohibitive to recycle.
Well, again, when going back to your operation there in the Quonset huts, so it comes in and then you all separate them out into different categories?
We do ask our recyclers to do a separation at home, bring them in different boxes or bags, and then we take and put them in the different areas. We have to take off the lids off the plastic bottles because baling them, the lids hold the air and they end up expanding and busting the bales. Recently, we've moved to where we take all plastic except styrofoam. That's something a lot of people haven't heard yet. It's all in our expansion. We're trying to meet the needs of the area in the recycling field.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm assuming plastic is, what, remelted?
I'm really not sure what the process is, but there is some melting, mixing with other plastics, and then making whatever items are acceptable out of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, getting back to your naval career, much recycling going on in the Navy?
Reuse, some recycling. I was in submarines, So everything that we got rid of, went off to the tenders. Now, they recycled metals, and I guess today they probably recycle cardboard and other items. But I've been retired for several years now, so I'm not sure what's going on in the fleet.
Yeah, nuclear submarines.
Yes.
Yeah, that's again, getting back to the program. So, are there any particular hours, days you need to drop things off?
Yes.
That's good to talk about.
Right now we're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are 8 to 2, and Saturday is 9 to 1.
And I'm assuming you have a website?
Yes. RecycleNowPaducah.com. And unfortunately, it's under reconstruction. The whole website disappeared one day. Technology is wonderful, but it's also
when it works
unforgiving.
Well, as I say, nowadays we put all of our eggs in one electronic basket, and
Yes.
and again, when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I really think people are becoming more and more aware of this. The idea of going green, as you see it everywhere, and I think there's a real public awareness of this. Although I can remember sort of fits and starts. It became popular back in the 70s, and then it kind of faded out again. But I really think, as I said, part of the psychology is the fact that this is such a large country. And well, I do a lecture in my history class on the invention of plumbing. And you have a bathtub and you have a toilet in your house, if you have the money, of course. And when you flush the toilet, you don't think where it goes. And when you pull the plug on the bathtub, you don't think where it goes. And I think when you set that garbage out by your street and they come and pick it up, you don't think where it goes.
That's exactly right. It's a matter of we've become very accustomed to the services that are provided, the things technology has provided. If you look back in the I guess early Roman days, it wasn't such a nice walk down the street.
That's true. That's true. But again, I think it's a real case of out of sight, out of mind. It's just it's not around. So, and we're out of time. Thank you for joining us. Maybe you can go back in and we can talk about this more some other time.
Yes, definitely.
My guest today was Merle Paschedag. I'm Barry Craig. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.